This is the Griffin Podcast, episode number 102. We're in our buyer plan, and the question on the table is financial pre-qualification beneficial? Are you a home seller or home buyer who has questions about selling or buying residential property? Or maybe you're an agent who needs a plan, but you just can't seem to find an easy way to get your answers? Well, then, hey, you are definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of The Griffin and the host of the Ask-A-Griffin podcast. And to help you take immediate action to get started in the right direction, if you're a seller, buyer, or an agent, you can take advantage of our free step-by-step guides that are waiting for you at griffincourses.com. Okay, let's get started. We're in the buyer plan of our three plans at the Griffin. We have the seller plan, the buyer plan, and the agent plan. So the question on the table here is we're beginning our parlay into financing. And so your financial pre-qualification prior to buying your property. And the concept is getting pre-qualified or pre-approved. And again, it's tough to nail down an exact definition, but it's the start of the process of getting your financial house in order before getting involved in this massive financial transaction. So the first benefit number one of pre-qualification is that buyers become more certain. It's a key word here, more certain as to how much they can or want to spend. So think about that for a second. So often today, the speed with which we are programmed to think, instant gratification. We go on our phone, we look something up, we get what we want when we want, and everything's at high speed. Secondly, this is a massive financial transaction that there's not enough education in the public forum that matters and can compete with the interest of looking at pictures and details of properties online. Every app out there that is successful is more oriented to indexing properties so that you can sit there and look at pictures and details. Then the next thing that you'll see index are open houses. So the draw, let's look at all this information. Let's be drawn into a house to go physically see it by the public invitation. And then now what? Is that really a plan? Is that a plan for buying a house? I mean, think about it. The average house in our market, primary markets, well, now we have multiple markets, so I'll be careful what I say here, but it could be $500,000. It could be $1 million. It could be multi-millions of dollars. And yet we're just going to look online, call up our trusted realtor, and just show up and buy it. Well, maybe you have the financial wherewithal or wealth to do so, and that's what you want when you want it. Great, no problem. But for most people, they're committing to a loan. And for savvy buyers, why pay all cash if you can do better investing your money? So this whole concept of pre-qualification is a determination of what you can spend or what you want to spend. That's important, right? Think about that. You're just getting your bearings. What do I really want to spend? What can I spend? Because if you start looking at properties and you haven't gone through this pre-qualification / pre-approval process, nobody's vetted you financially. So you might have a concept of what you can do, and you might not be able to do that because of the way you account for your business. Or you're just not there yet. You need more of a down payment, whatever. It's just helpful. But the second benefit of getting or going through a pre-qualification process is that you as the buyer can now research what that money's actually buying. See, here at the Griffin, one of the things we teach our agents, it's very important that when you're working with a buyer, this is more obvious on the sell side, but when you're working with a buyer, show them what the money is buying right now. So imagine that before you go out and start looking at what's for sale, which you don't know because you're not an insider in the business, there is an enormity of expired, canceled, and withdrawn listings, meaning things that for one reason or another, but mostly they were priced incorrectly, didn't sell. So you go in there with your naivety and you're not educated yet on what you want to spend, and you start chasing something that's overpriced, and the next thing you know, you're trying to squeeze, more money out of friends, and it's chaotic. Why? Why does a buyer get that emotional about something? I get it. I've been in this business for a long time. I get that it's the single largest emotional transaction most people make in a lifetime. I have seen extremely intellectual people have a meltdown over this. And so the point is that if you now have this pre-qualification and you say, oh, I can spend up to this, or I want to only spend up to this, Now you go and you get your trusted realtor. And I say trusted realtor because when you're using a buyer's agent in this case, they have a fiduciary responsibility to get you the best information. So what they should be doing is going into the multiple listing service and saying, all right, you want to live, for example, you want to live in Beacon Hill, Boston, and you would like to spend somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million, and that's your wherewithal. So you could go up to $1 million based on your pre-qualification, but you'd maybe prefer to buy $750,000. Great. I'm going to pull you a list of all the properties that sold in Beacon Hill in the last 30, 60, 90 days, whatever it takes. I'm going to go backwards in time. And we're going to see what $750,000 to $1 million bought. Now, here's another interesting twist on this. A good savvy buyer's agent in a correcting market, which as of the recording of this podcast, we're beginning to fall into, is also going to look at what's pending. So if what's pending looks similar to what just sold and the pending sale price, right? So in other words, the asking price, you don't know what it sold for until it's sold, is lower, we can see a decline in what's happening. So maybe there's reason for excitement or pause, depending on how quickly that decline is happening. So that opportunity abounds. So just knowing, one, what you want to or can spend and matching that up with solds and maybe pendings in a correcting market for the buyers, man, is that a powerful position to be in. Talk about two major benefits. And the third benefit I wanted to discuss in this podcast was, now that this is all happening correctly in the right order from a buyer plan standpoint, right, which is what we're talking about. This is one piece of our buyer plan at Griffin, which you can get at griffincourses.com. I'll mention that now and at the end too. But the point is that the buyer's agent working on your behalf, your fiduciary, your trusted advisor, doesn't have to guess at what you can afford while you're running around looking at these properties. And when it comes to negotiation, they'll be negotiating on your behalf from a position of strength because you are pre-approved, including bringing in the mortgage broker, the loan officer, whomever took you through the pre-qualification to validate that you have given all the real documentation, that this is a real pre-qualification. It's not some stated situation, but it's a real vetted situation. Now, of course, you can't get fully approved for a mortgage loan until you, as a buyer, pre-approved as a buyer, are matched up with the property, which then gets vetted. It's that whole package in the end that really has to be fully approved, and then there's finally a clear to close that everything's in order, right? That's the way it looks. Now, the key point here is getting pre-qualified for a mortgage loan is always a smart first step in the entirety of this process. When you look at a copy of our buyer plan, the first thing we're going to discuss is representation. Because although to many people it's obvious that you can have a buyer's agent in this modern era, it's not obvious to everyone. Because we're so conditioned, again, I'll mention by instant gratification, that we're running around on our phone and we're running right into a house without a plan. I'm not saying that everybody makes an egregious mistake when they do that, but there's a large probability you do. And the worst thing is, you don't want to take advantage of yourself by being that haphazard about something. So just get a plan and get a representative who has one. But the first thing that everybody should do, even if you're resetting, go get pre-qualified. It's just a smart step. It empowers you. And isn't that, as a buyer, what you want? To make an empowered, informed decision? Not letting somebody just tell you what to do as the trusted advisor. Be empowered by that person. First step, pre-qualification. All right, let me summarize it. I'll go back and say this. We're in the buyer plan, the Griffin buyer plan. And the question on the table is, financial pre-qualification beneficial? So the three main points plus a bonus point here. The benefit, number one, is that buyers become more certain as to how much they can or want to spend. The second benefit is that buyers can research what that sort of money is actually buying just recently or right now. The third benefit is that the buyer's agent that's working on that buyer's behalf doesn't have to guess at what they can afford, and they'll be able to negotiate on the buyer's behalf from a position of strength. And lastly, the key point here is getting pre-qualified in any case, in any circumstance, for a mortgage loan is always a smart first step. It's an empowering step. I'll summarize it by saying getting pre-qualified for a mortgage loan is every smart home buyer's first step. Once the buyer knows what they are qualified to spend, they can see more clearly what that money is actually buying, and they can help their agent by doing so negotiate on their behalf from a position of strength. All right, remember, you can take immediate action to get started in the right direction if your seller, buyer, or agent wants help by getting a copy of our free step-by-step guides. Our plans are waiting for you at griffincourses.com. That's GRIFFIN courses.com. Also, don't forget you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. We also post our content on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the Griffin channel. You'll see our logo over there, the Griffin. We also appreciate it if you would share our content with home sellers, home buyers, or real estate agents so they get the help that they need as well. But remember this, nobody's coming for you. Nobody. So take action and get to work on a plan for buying, selling your next property, or maybe becoming a successful real estate agent. And we'll see you in the next episode to help you do that. Thanks.